The Adeptus Astartes epitomize the noble warrior creed of the Imperium. Cast in the image of their Primarchs, the Angels of Death stand defiant against the encroaching darkness and shed their vitae in the name of the Emperor. For today, we shall elucidate the many chapters of the Space Marines, derived from the lineage of the beloved martyr and great angel, Sanguinius. The successor chapters of the Ninth Legion, the Blood Angels.
They are the sons of the Angel, the blooded host, the defenders of humanity. They are strength, they are nobility, they are the Blood Angels. And I say to you, there are no more loyal or determined servants of the Emperor alive today.
The legions of the Adeptus Astartes founding chapters are the most renowned and storied within the Imperium. Tales of valor, betrayal, defiance, hubris, and unyielding duty define the foundations for both the Loyalist and Traitor legions and their successor chapters whom followed in their wake. Though each of the 9 Loyalist founding legions bear a burden, some of secrecy, some of protection, some of shame. Yet one chapter amongst them bears a burden which could more accurately be described as a curse. The 9th Legion of the Adeptus Astartes, the Blood Angels. Founded during the Unification Wars to unify Holy Terror, the Blood Angels would be crafted from the genetic materials left in the wake of the scattering of their Primarch, Sanguinius. Inheriting many of their gene father's traits, the Terran-born Astartes would serve the Emperor in only a handful of conquests, ravaging his enemies during audacious raids, with their strategies focused on close-range combat. The small in number 9th Legion would be deployed in some of the most dangerous war zones of the Unification Wars. Recruiting their numbers from the dispossessed souls of Terra, their stature would be remarkably elegant, tall, and fair. Despite their legion often bearing marks of mutation born from their gene seed implantations, yet rumors would abound of the 9th Legion within the Imperium. Rumored to consume the corpses of their enemies in battle, they would earn the moniker of the Eaters of the Dead. Their mythic reputation bolstered by evidence of their genetically gifted retractable, so-called Angel's Teeth. The 9th Legion's misfortune would only increase with their deployment to backwater planets such as Neptune and its moons. Losing 12,000 warriors during their conquest of the world, the 9th Legion would nonetheless survive their mission and replenish their number with the barest of human dregs within Neptune's tunnel systems. Enduring beyond excruciating losses and circumstance, the 9th Legion would define its early service as a legion capable of being renewed with each catastrophic loss, only to grow stronger. With even Malcador the Sigillite dubbing the 9th Legion as the Revenant Legion. Fighting alongside similarly denigrated legions such as the 12th Legion, the Warhounds, the 9th Legion would go on to fight during the Great Crusade as a brooding, methodical, and bloodthirsty symbol of humanity's indomitable will, a task they would relish with grim pride. The wider Imperium would shun the 9th Legion, as its campaigns throughout the stars would divide and distance the Legion's might. Many red cults would form from the fractured Legion, conducting bloody pagan rituals that would invite censure by the Imperium on several occasions. The administratums of the Imperium resolving to supply the barbarous 9th Legion with little advanced weaponry to attempt to rein in their bloodlust. Yet an event would turn the 9th Legion from their heretical ways: the discovery of a young child of the planet of Baal, the long-lost son of the Emperor of mankind, Sanguinius. With the rediscovery of the Primarch of the 9th Legion, Sanguinius would rename his gene sons to be known as the Blood Angels, merging the Terran-born Astartes of the Unification Wars with the sons of Baal. Their Primarch, the Great Angel, would bow before his sons, offering them loyalty and service without reservation. A welcome gesture to the routinely shunned and isolated 9th Legion, the Blood Angels would grow to adore their gene father. His shedding of blood alongside them in battle and endeavors to cure the Legion of their bloodlust, further bolstering their love for their Primarch. Serving alongside the Lunar Wolves Legion commanded by Horus Lupercal, the 9th Legion would learn from the 16th Legion's martial prowess and dignity for over a decade, transforming the Blood Angels from barbaric butchers to noble warriors. with Primarch Horus Lupercal instilling values within the Blood Angels, such as pride, to replace their desire for blood and carnage. Sanguinius would instruct his legion to bring planets under compliance with peaceful means, pacifying its peoples without the need to shed a single drop of blood. Sanguinius would also teach his sons the cultural hobbies he had adored on his homeworld of Baal. Poetry and art would be instilled within the Legion as hobbies to adopt, leading to the Legion to go to extreme lengths to procure materials for their art projects, fighting hideous beasts that guarded their precious bloodstones, fauna, and pigments necessary to create their paintings. No longer were the Blood Angels monsters spoken of to instill fear into the hearts of men. Now they were icons of the Imperium's nobility, courage, and glory. Yet even with such accolades and reinventions of the Legion's character, its sons would continue to suffer greatly from their curse, a curse which their gene father would attempt to keep secret, and one day, cure. The bond between Horus Lupercal and Sanguinius had grown immensely, as the two saw each other as the closest of their brothers. Likewise, their legions would share a similar kinship. In an attempt to mitigate the chances of facing his beloved brother and his legion in battle, Horus Lupercal would dispatch the Blood Angels to the Cygnus cluster at the opening stages of his treacherous rebellion against the Imperium. Snared by traps of the devising of the War Master and his foul benefactors of chaos, the Blood Angels and their Primarch would be beset by armies of demons. With most of the Legion's fleet crew unaware of the forces of chaos, the demons would wreak havoc amongst their number. Rallying his senior officers, Sanguinius would command his legion to combat this unknown threat to the Imperium. Facing the bloodthirster of Khorne, Ka'Bandha, Sanguinius would deny the demon its victory, yet be told by the foul being of Horus Lupercal's betrayal. Rejecting the demon's words, Sanguinius and Ka'Bandha would duel. Landing a deadly blow to the demon's chest with his sword, the Primarch's legs would be broken in retaliation. Retreating from the battle, Ka'Bandha would decimate 500 Astartes within his wake, their deaths creating a psychic backlash that would rend Sanguinius unconscious. The Blood Angels would become enraged with a berserker fury, fueled by their dark curse. As battle waged on, victory would be achieved, their rage would subside, and in time, their Primarch would awaken. His wounds already healing, Sanguinius would nonetheless bear a heavy heart for the thousands of his loyal sons whom now lay dead on the surface of Cygnus Prime. Besieged by the Primarch of the Imperial Fists, Rogal Dorn, the Blood Angels would be recalled to defend Holy Terra. Unaware that the Legion's homeworld of Baal had been ravaged by the traitor forces, the Blood Angels would travel to the Ultramar system with the birth of the Ruinstorm and the splitting of the galaxy in two. With the aid of Primarchs Roboute Guilliman of the Ultramarines Legion and Lionel Johnson of the Dark Angels, the Blood Angels would traverse through the Ruinstorm and return to Holy Terra. Combining the strength of the Adeptus Custodes, Astra Militarum, Imperial Fists, White Scars, and their Primarchs Rogal Dorn and Jaghatai Khan, the Blood Angels would aid in the defense of the Imperial Palace of Holy Terra from the onslaught of traitor forces. Their Primarch, Sanguinius, would confront War Master Horus Lupercal aboard his flagship vessel, the Vengeful Spirit, dueling him in single combat. The War Master would slay the Great Angel, his death unleashing a psychic imprint amongst the Blood Angels that would haunt them for eternity. With the death of the War Master by the hands of the Emperor and the traitors repelled from Holy Terra, the Blood Angels would demand retribution for their father's death. With many of the Ninth Legion succumbing to their genetic flaw, they would envision the dying moments of their Primarch and be driven into a psychotic rage, forever known thereafter as the Black Rage, a curse which would only grow in the years following the end of the Horus Heresy. The flaw, as it would come to be known, would linger within the Ninth Legion and its many Codex Astartes compliant successor chapters. Developing a psychological hunger to drink blood, the Blood Angels regularly drink the donated blood of their serfs to quench their so-called red thirst. Despite the blood bearing no nutritional value to the Sons of Baal, without regular consumption, the Sons of Sanguinius begin to show signs of aging, such as white hair and wrinkled skin. Draining their mental stability, It is a necessary evil which the Blood Angels and their successors must partake to keep their chapter in fighting condition. Though should a Blood Angel not resist the call of the Red First, he shall become mutated and monstrous in form. His teeth replaced with fangs, his face resembling that of a bat, and causing his stature to force him to walk on all four of his limbs. For it is said, the blood of a living host is all the more delicious compared to the Karash wine of donated blood. And for those whom should the Red First not take, the Blood Angels can suffer the Black Rage. Embodying their Primarch struggle against the War Master, they shall see his hideous apparition before them and lash out at anyone within their vicinity. Unable to distinguish friend from foe, the Black Rage causes a Blood Angel to strike upon his own kin. An incurable affliction, those under the thrall of the Rage are transferred to the Death Company within their chapter, unless their affliction is too violent to contain, whom are subsequently put down to end their suffering. Though for the Sons of Baal there is hope to contain their bloodlust. When a battle brother partakes in activities such as painting, their soul becomes soothed of their inner rage, drastically decreasing the incidence of their curse spilling out into the world. With their Primaris generation of battle brothers further protected from the call of their curse, though that is not to say that the threat of the Rage overcoming them is gone entirely. Since the origin of the chapter, the Blood Angels had numbered 120,000 strong. Though during the 41st millennium, like many loyalist legions of the Adeptus Astartes, the 9th Legion's chapter now only consists of 1,000 Space Marines. Recruiting new aspirants from the chapter's homeworld of Baal and its orbiting moons, the Blood Angels arranged for contests held at Angel's Fall, the place wherein Sanguinius was first discovered on Baal. Tasked with traversing to the place of challenge via a hostile desert, fire scorpion-infested canyons, and other perilous environmental hazards, the aspirants then must face one another in gladiatorial battle. Of the 50 surviving aspirants from the trials, they are taken by Thunderhawk gunships to Baal's fortress monastery, the Arx Angelicum. Standing vigil for 72 hours without rest, the aspirants that fall asleep are removed by the monastery's blood servitors, their fates unknown to those outside the chapter. Once their vigil is ended, the aspirants are offered a chalice by the sanguinary priests. Drinking the blood from within, which many claim contains a portion of the great angel's own blood, the aspirants are left comatose and entombed within caskets within the hall of the sarcophagi. For a year, the slumbering recruits are kept alive by the casket's life support systems. Continually injected with the blood of Sanguinius, their bodies undergo rapid changes, causing many of the aspirants to die from the traumatic transformation wrought by their gene seed. Some awaken during the process, becoming insane within their dark, cold, claustrophobic existence. With only a small number adapting, overcoming the odds and becoming new members of the Blood Angels chapter. Consisting of 10 companies, each one is commanded by a captain, who is in turn defended by an honor guard, with exceptions given only to the companies of the Sanguinary Guard and Death Company. Governed by the Red Council, consisting of senior officers, the highest-ranking soldiers of the Legion nominate the chapter's master and oversee all aspects of waging war, whereas the Council of Blood, formed of chaplains and sanguinary priests, monitor the chapter's spiritual and physical health, keeping a watchful eye on Astartes that may be in the fledgling stages of being consumed by the Red First or Black Rage. Uncharacteristically for a Space Marine Legion, the Blood Angels do not signify their squad denomination on their shoulders with Imperial Gothic numerals or coloured trim. Instead, marking their warriors by symbols adorning their right knee pads. Their right pauldron denotes their company, with the Veteran First Company signified by a skull. Battle companies are denoted by a coloured blood drop. The Reserve Companies adopt twin-coloured blood drops, and the 10th Company, the Scout Marines, garner a black skull on their right shoulder plate and their chapter emblem on their left plate. Their helmets, also unlike most chapters of Astartes, do not denote rank, but rather operational specialization. Red is standard for battle line combatants, yellow for close support, blue for fire support, and gold for command staff. Senior officers of the chapter bear black pauldrons displaying the Blood Angel's blood drop with red trim, with veteran sergeants adorning the blood drop with wings, whilst lieutenants and captains bear more ornate versions of the chapter's heraldry. The librarians of the chapter don blue armour with their left shoulder plate painted red, their chapter badge marked on their right knee plate black with a red background. Sanguinary priests bear red armour trimmed with white, their rank emblazoned on their left shoulder plate, and for the unfortunate souls of the Death Company, their armour is repainted black, marked with red crosses to denote their sacrifice to their Primarch and doomed fate to fight until death for their chapter. With the honour guard of the Legion each signified with a golden helmet to distinguish them from their brethren as the vanguard against threats against the chapter's most crucial senior officers. And though there are many successors of the Sons of Sanguinius, many bear great resentment for the dividing of their Legion, their curse now more vulnerable than ever to gain sustenance from the doubts, dreads, and burdens placed on the 9th Legion, with even the golden sons of the Sanguinary Guard no longer beyond the reproach of the Imperium under the tutelage of their current chapter master, Dante. Yet there will come a time to further discuss the Revenant Legion and their deeds. Whether those tales tell of their valor or their savagery is in the hands of the Emperor.
Rabute Guilliman, Guilliman the tactician, Guilliman the warrior. History will remember the Primarch of the Ultramarines by many titles. To us of the Blood, he will only have one, Guilliman the Butcher. With law and edict, Guilliman ripped the heart from the legions. Even his own sons were not spared his treachery. Where Horus had sought to use a hammer blow, Guilliman used a duelist's blade. In the end, the result was the same. Brother became cousin. Cousin became exile. Guilliman's new chapter, his new beginning, was a sundering to all that had come before. Stripped of honour and tithe, of history and deed, we were all of us undone. Bastards of war and victory. We were angels, no more.
The Angels in Carmine are a second founding successor chapter of the Blood Angels. The most aloof of all chapters of the Blood, their arrogance is derived from their relentless eternal crusade, waged with no relent nor reprieve. Said to be active in the most concurrent campaigns of any Space Marine chapter, the zealous fury of the Angels in Carmine is attributed to the pure warrior spirit of their Primarch. Few can match the plaudits nor battle honours of the chapter, though by virtue of their endless warring, the cost incurred for such glories is high. There further preventing their recuperation nor reinforcement between battles, the fires of war swiftly weed out unworthy new initiates within their ranks. Seen to be a method to harness and stave off their gene flaw, other observers believe this method of warfare is done solely to thin their Death Company to reasonable levels of deployment. Rarely at full strength, as attrition erodes their forces, their Death Company exceeds any of their contemporaries. Said to be no fewer than 30 Astartes at any given time, it is unclear if this is due to their high rates of curse affliction or the sheer stubborn survivability of their Death Company. Never recorded to have rejected a request for aid, the Angels in Carmine clad in their red armour, trimmed with black, and bearing a yellow aquila, symbolises their noble yet furious countenance. Their Death Company and Sanguinary Guard, bedecked in alabaster white with black trim, all bear the sigil of a red droplet with ebon wings proudly on their armour. Relatively Codex compliant in their structure, the Angels in Carmine follow the example of their Blood Angels primogenitor. Reinforced with Primaris Space Marines, it is the hope of the Imperium that with such fresh and flawless recruits, the Angels in Carmine can continue to conduct their relentless campaigns without the gene curse costing them their glories. The Angels Sanguine are a second founding chapter of the Blood Angels. Crucial in purging the forces of chaos invading from the Eye of Terror, these examples of the Blood are noted for their heroism and nobility. Refusing to remove their hooded helmets to those outside their chapter, the Angels Sanguine invite suspicion and misgivings for their secrecy. Comprised of twice the librarians of any chapter of the Blood, many Imperial forces speculate to their deeds made within their catacombs beneath their fortress monastery of Barlas Trine. Partially compliant in structure to the Codex Astartes, Alike to their Blood Angels compatriots, the warriors clad in halved red and black ceramite wear their symbol of a white skull centered on red wings proudly. Utilizing white paint to mark their squad specialties on their right pauldron, black Gothic numerals are centered on their squad symbol, with their company number emblazoned on their right knee. Cherishing their artifact, the Grail of Angels above all, each sanguinary high priest has consumed the blood of their Primarch to allow for its continued rejuvenation. Initiates of the chapter must drink from the Grail in order to ascend as true Angel Sanguine and partake in absorbing the essence of their Gene-Sire. Though rumours persist that their bloodline has been tainted by the rabble of Baalas Trine, they nonetheless remain a stalwart chapter of the Angel. The Angels Vermilion are a second founding chapter of the Blood Angels. Originating from the 9th chapter of the Blood Angels Legion during the Horus Heresy, their involvement in the scouring of the Nostramo sector and pillaging of the Night Lord's vessel, Shroud of Eventide, and subsequent transformation into their own flagship, Crimson Intent, belies their capable and resourceful nature. A reclusive and solitary chapter, the Angels Vermilion refuse to cooperate nor aid their kindred chapters. Spurning all offers of brotherhood from the Angels of the Blood, the chapter's isolation stems from their intent to bear the gene flaws of their Primarch alone. Threatening to reveal the Red First and Black Rage to the wider Imperium should their boundaries be crossed, the primogenitor of their chapter and their Lord Commander, Dante, bids all to keep a wide berth from such a stubborn and volatile chapter. Exemplary warriors all, despite their antisocial tendencies, their banishing of the greater demon, Agfrax Raphael, on the world of Parnasium and relief of the world of Catandril Temple Siege are among the few records willingly given by the chapter. Residing on the world of Coronal, its varied landscapes of vast deserts, ice caps, jungle canyons, and a vast cobalt ocean, its single continent is flanked by greenery, cut into by 5 winding rivers. Their fortress monastery of Bloodspike, standing at 1,500 feet tall, juts into the heavens as befitting the half of the Angels of Death. Its peak topped with a hooded golden angel, its bowed and haloed visage oversees the domain of the Angels Vermilion, as ocean winds buffet the energy shield of the Bloodspike's defenses. Partially Codex compliant alike to their primogenitor chapter, their dark red armor trimmed with black and emblazoned with a yellow Aquila or Imperialis bears striking similarity to the Angels in Carmine. Their chapter symbol depicting a winged drop of blood atop a bear's skull symbolizes their duty to slay the enemies of the Angel and preserve his bloodline. Routinely feeding upon mortals to stave off the affliction of the Red First, very few of its Astartes fall prey to their gene curse each year and forestall the inevitable black rage of its Astartes for decades. Ashamed of their flaw, the Angels Vermilion seek atonement for their methods of staving off their affliction, and as such devote themselves to wars of penitence. Engaging in brief skirmishes and battles that shall never be recorded in the annals of history, the Angels Vermilion believe that vainglory, alike to their primogenitor, blinds the disciplines of Sanguinius to their true nature and purpose. Believing their Primarch to be cursed, the Angels Vermilion do not hold the Great Angel in the same regard as their peers, for in their mind, he had doomed all Blood Angel successors to a terrible fate with his death. Knowing themselves to be monsters of war, the chapter embraces the era of darkness in order to feed themselves to the flames of war to keep the light of the galaxy burning. Conducting the Sorrowing each 5 solar decades, wherein the Astartes painlessly drain the blood from mortal labor serfs of their homeworld of Coronal, the bodies of their victims are flensed of flesh. Cleaning their bones and interring them within the chapel of the Isle of Martyrs, those that sacrifice their lives to the chapter are forever honored and treated with the utmost respect. Bathing in the collected blood of their harvest, a single sanguinary priest opens his veins to pour the essence of Sanguinius into their bounty, and with his death, store the collected vitae for use in battle as nourishment. Knowing their spoils to be brought at the cost of countless innocents, the Sorrowing is a necessary evil of the chapter, in order to enable the longevity and battle readiness of their Astartes. Their ritual discovered by High Chaplain of the Blood Angels, Herion, during 428.M41 during his investigation of a lost refugee vessel of Dovar. Chapter Master Chald warned the High Chaplain that should he reveal their secret, the Angels Vermilion shall reveal their gene curse of the blood to the Inquisition. Should the Angels Vermilion perish, they shall take all their peers down with them. Despite the risk, Herion relayed his findings to Lord Commander Dante, yet knowing the fallout should he act further, Dante ordered all chapters of the Blood to shun the Angels Vermilion forevermore and never accept their petitions for aid. Regardless of their fractured relationship to their primogenitor, a contingent of the Angels Vermilion aided the chapters of the Blood during the devastation of Baal, led by Captain Fen. Their force of 112 warriors, though initially refused to fight by their side, would begrudgingly be accepted to join the fold in repelling the Great Devourer. Revered by the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Xenos, the Death Watch, the Angels Vermilion serve with dignified and revered service, yet make every attempt to not cooperate with contingents of their brother chapters. Due to several members of the Blood Angels chapters serving as senior members of the Jericho Reach contingent of the Death Watch, the Angels Vermilion refuse to serve within such jurisdictions. Their clandestine nature and fell rituals preserving their numbers as they continue to purge the void of the Imperium's enemies. The Angels Penitent are a successor chapter of the Blood Angels. The only known chapter made from the ninth founding of the Astartes, the chapter for millennia bore the title of the Angels Resplendent before changing their identity. Established upon the world of Malpertius within the fortress monastery of Canvolis, the chapter began a slow descent into madness derived from their gene curse. Obsessed with opulence and displays of artistry, the chapter's early years of service would be epitomized by their pursuits as artisans above their duties as warriors. Deriving joy from nobility rather than duty or slaughter, the Angels Resplendent cited no instances of the Black Rage within their ranks, and for a time were seen as the purest of all the chapters of the Blood. Clad in gold armor trimmed with red and silver, the warrior artists, bearing the symbol of a hooded angelic figure with arms outstretched, saw warfare as an art form in itself, and pursued such campaigns with a unique, if strange, discipline. However, with the intervention of a mysterious mortal, the chapter began a drastic shift in beliefs. Known as the Undying Martyr, due to his miraculous survival crossing the river Tristes surrounding their fortress monastery, a feat which even a space marine would struggle to accomplish. Absent of their chapter master and their first company, the human would be interrogated by Chaplain Icarus Malvoisin and espouse his puritanical perspective of the Imperial Creed. For 19 days, the chaplain conversed with the human until bringing him to his kin to proclaim him a prophet of the God Emperor. His dark revelations, citing humanity as beyond redemption, the Adeptus Astartes were the greatest sinners of the Imperial Creed for their failure to prevent ruin at the hands of the slain War Master of Chaos, Horus Lupercal. None could ascend to the Emperor's light, and only penitence and pain could bargain to wipe clean the collective sins of the past. Enacting a great purge of the chapter, blasphemy and ostentation was cleansed from the fortress monastery. Converting all Astartes within the chapter to his beliefs, the Undying Martyr's influence saw to the Space Marines' banishment of all gaudy displays of art. Renaming themselves as the Angels Penitent and banning all production of artistic creation, the penitent angels now dedicated to castigate themselves and the Imperium of sin. Chief Librarian Athanasius chose to spurn the preachments of Chaplain Icaros, and for his denunciation was branded a heretic. Slaying Athanasius and his followers, Icaros bellowed that the Emperor condemns, before sundering those loyal to the chapter's past ideals. Now ruled by the Council of Chaplains known as the Crown of Thorns, the Masters of the Angels Penitent keep a close eye on their kin for signs of adherence to their old ways. The change in their ideology exacerbating the Black Rage, many Battle Brothers have surrendered to their gene flaw. Creating the first Death Company to assign the first of their kin to ever fall victim to its clutches, the Angels Penitent continue their acts of punishing vanity and expression. Aiding in the defense of the devastation of Baal against High Fleet Leviathan, the chapters of the Blood know not of the reason for their kin's change in mentality, yet gladly accepted their might in defending the Baal system. Clad in black ceramite with streaks of umber vines barbed with thorns, the Imperial Aquila or Imperialis worn with white paint upon their breastplate, and their squad iconography on their knee plate. Adopting their new symbol of a white skull adorned with a grey crown of thorns, the Angels Penitent strike an imposing and dour figure. Though seemingly resolute in their quest to scour the galaxy clean of sin, there remain some within the ranks of the chapter who pine for their former glory. Hoping to one day free themselves from the shackles of their outsider's influence, many hope for the return of their chapter master, Varzivol Cervantes, or the Knight Resplendent, after his long campaign in the Void. Though many speculate that Cervantes has been long dead, and all hope for the restoration of the Angels Resplendent is but a naive dream.
The Blood Drinkers are a second founding chapter of the Blood Angels. Founded following the Great Civil War of the Horus Heresy, despite their sinister title, the chapter maintains good relations and an exemplary record among the ranks of the Astartes. Retaining immense bonds of loyalty with chapters such as the Crimson Fists, Howling Griffins and Nova Marines, their intervention during the devastation of Baal has only further bolstered their honourable reputation. Refusing to conceal their bloodlust and embracing their need to quench their thirst, their rituals and temperament have seemingly allowed the chapter to control their gene floor. Clad in carnelian red with golden yellow icons on their breastplate, they bear the icon of their chapter, a droplet of black blood descending into an ebon chalice, with pride. Adorning their right pauldron with Codex-compliant squad markings with black low-Gothic numerals to indicate their squad number, their pauldron trim adheres to the color-coding standards of the Codex Astartes. Their sanguinary priests coating their right side of their armor white in its entirety, they also bear a vertical yellow stripe down the center of their helmets. Yet beneath the facade, the chapter has come close to extinction on occasions, such as the 37th millennium, wherein many of their initiates succumb to the Black Rage, instantly with their ascension into Astartes. The chapter's revered saint, Holos, set forth to find a cure for their affliction, and after witnessing a divinely induced dream, resolved to climb the mount of his chapter's homeworld of San Guisiga. Upon Calicium, the mightiest of the planet's volcanic peaks, Holos fought the lord of the Xenos Astorgai, Lotan. Casting off his battered and broken power armor and slaying the Xenos, Holos was visited by a splendid golden angel, which imparted the secret to staving off his chapter's curse. Returning solar weeks later to his fortress monastery, Brother Holos imparted the angel's wisdom to his chapter, to much uproar. Dividing his chapter into the Blood Schism, Holos's return, despite its initial turmoil with time, ended the madness of the Black Rage within his chapter. Now known as the Rite of Holos, their secretive ritual allows for the Blood Angels to achieve a balance between nobility and savagery that is the envy of their peers, but incurs a heavy toll. Assembling all battle brothers within the Hall of Life of their reclusium, the warriors dressed in scarlet and black are stripped of their rank insignias. With rank of no import, during the ritual, the chaplains and sanguinary priests watch as labor serfs willingly offer their vitae to the assembled Astartes. Drained of blood, whilst drained, the serf's blood channels into the stone floor of the chamber, forming a droplet of crimson. Enacting their blood tithe by drinking the collected blood, the reclusiarch of the chapter leads them in prayers of atonement as they quench their thirst. Reaffirming their oaths, the blood drinkers beg for forgiveness from one another for the cost of their reprieve as the tech marines of the chapter take a sample of their own blood to offer to the machine spirits of their weapons and armor. Believing the monster within to be unkillable, they resolve instead to tame it and sate its thirst to postpone their own demise. In truth, the Angel of the Peak of Calicium was a demon of the warp, cited to be the Vizier of Tzeentch, Kairos Fateweaver. Bargaining his kin's reprieve for the ability to replace the visions of his chapter's death company from those of Horus's fratricide to the pact made upon Calicium. Perceiving the Black Rage as a blessing rather than a curse, the blood drinkers who have seen the vision of Kairos have each in turn been offered a compact with the forces of chaos. All have refused such a poisoned chalice, yet Kairos Fateweaver needs only one blood drinker to utter his compliance in order to claim the chapter for his own purposes.
the true fate of the contract known only to the Reclusiarchs of the chapter. Their fate is balanced on a knife's edge. Strictly adherent to the edicts of the Codex Astartes, the Blood Drinkers by all appearances are the paragon to which the chapters of the Blood should aspire. Though looks can be deceiving, and deeds undone by the smallest misstep, and it is unclear when they shall take their first step in their fall from grace. The Sons of Sanguinius are a second founding chapter of the Blood Angels. Originally sired from the ranks of the former Legion's 6th Company, their bonds of fealty and trust to their primogenitor chapter is among the strongest. As their title suggests, the Sons of Sanguinius uphold the memory and glories of their Primarch above all duties and have earned a glorious reputation. Choosing not to deny their bloodlust nor innate genetic flaws, the Sons of Sanguinius harness their rage to best serve the objectives of their campaigns. Utterly zealous in their purges of heresy throughout the galaxy, the chapter shows a callous disregard for civilian lives during their prosecutions of the wicked. Adhering closely to the Codex Astartes, alike to their primogenitor chapter, by adhering to its strictures, the Sons of Sanguinius use such disciplines to control their thirst for blood. Strangely, among the chapters of the Blood, the Sons of Sanguinius do not maintain a Death Company, nor do their Elite First Company utilize any suits of Terminator armor, due to their armory only containing a dozen of such working suits. Preferring to deploy assault bikes and jump packs rather than heavy munitions, the Sons of Sanguinius also field fewer Devastator Marines than their contemporaries, with only 2 squads in each of their battle companies. Slow and steady in their approach regarding an abundance of tactical squads, the chapter limits outbursts of uncontrolled violence through measured and sound strategic formations. Though possessing librarian positions within their ranks who conduct scholarly duties required of their position, none within the chapter utilize psychic powers due to their distrust of such phenomena as tools of chaos. Recording the chapter's deeds and records of their mightiest heroes, the librarian also study the ancient texts of their archives in order to memorize holy chants, verses, and battle hymns. Supporting their brethren through such verse during battle, they are an inspiring presence despite their lack of psychic powers. Maintaining 30 veteran warriors within the ranks of their sanguinary guard, each elite member of the cadre is powerful enough to match a full squadron of his peers in martial prowess. Though their sanguinary priests function alike to their primogenitor of the Blood Angels, their chaplains champion their sole duty to prevent their kin's surrender to their thirst and rage. Recruited from the most somber and depressed members of their chapter, the chaplains supplant their sadness with hatred for heretics, apostates, and traitors. The other duties befitting a typical chapter of the Blood are the responsibility of the sanguinary priests, led by the most senior-ranking chaplain, the Reclusiarch. Conducting a ritual known as the Feast prior to each and every campaign, the Astartes of the Sons of Sanguinius gorge themselves on blood and vitae to stave off their gene curses. Sacrificing a single Astartes, proven valiant above all his peers, the lifeblood of such a promising scion of the chapter fills the gold chalices of the sanguinary priests as each of his kin drink a sample of his blood. Spreading his courage throughout each and every warrior of the chapter, should this ritual be observed by their peers and be seen as an extreme ritual, its efficacy in staving off the Red Thirst is beyond question. Painting a piece of their battle armor black to symbolize their mourning of the death of their Primarch, the Sons of the Great Angel know in their heart that their deeds and valor shall never be observed by their liege. The most morose of their kin prefer to paint larger portions of their armor black, with a select few coating the entirety of their armor alike to a Death Company Astartes. Said to have seen through the eyes of their Primarch in their dreams, these sullen killers take to the field of battle with bloody and relentless focus. Clad in terracotta red-hued tones of ceramite trimmed with black, the chapter identify their squad speciality on their right pauldron with white paint. Company markings are superimposed on their tactical designation, whilst their helmet color further defines their role. White helmets symbolize tactical marines, bone for assault marines, light blue for devastators, and black for veterans. Those who have proven especially brutal in their acts of war are known as blooded, and mark the mouthpiece of their helmet with red paint. Adopting a unique heraldry system for use on their right knee plate, each Astartes bear a heraldic symbol of differing colors to signify their squad, such as white skulls, red blood drops, or an angelic wing. Wearing their chapter icon with pride on their left pauldron, the golden skeletal chalice overflowing with blood, flanked by angel wings, epitomizes their uncompromising pledge to serve in the great angel's name. Preserving his spirit within the hearts of all the successor chapters of the blood, the sons of Sanguinius give new life to the angel through deeds made by his descendants. Though whether these uncompromising descendants of the great angel can continue to stave off their gene flaw is a question yet to be answered.
Only in death does duty end. That is the favoured axiom of the rulers of man and the craven orators who speak on their behalf. For our sins, we too have passed on such falsehoods to our own, instilling in them the notion that death is the end of all things. We were wrong about the nature of our duty. We were wrong about death's place in the order of things. It was only the edge of the madness, drenched in the blood of brother and foe, that we learned the error of our thinking. For only in death does duty begin. It matters not in what colour we daub our armour, or which symbol we carve on our pauldrons. Our purpose remains what it was intended to be. We will kill the enemies of mankind, and with blade and fire protect the Emperor's domain. We are harbingers of death, angels of vengeance, terrors of flesh.
The Adeptus Astartes are a terrible force to be reckoned with. Molded to be the greatest warriors to ever grace the stars by the Master of Mankind, each chapter embodies virtues and traits such as honor, sacrifice, and vengeance. Yet not all of the Angels of Death have a reputation which could be regarded as noble, and one among them is infamous across the length and breadth of the galaxy as wrathful, butchery incarnate. The savage yet beautiful sons of the great angel, the Flesh Tearers. In the wake of the Horus Heresy, the catastrophic civil war had proven the calamity of the unfettered strength of the Astartes, should they be turned from the path of light and delivered into the clutches of chaos. Sundering of the Legiones Astartes as a precaution for further destruction, Lord Commander and Primarch of the Ultramarines, Rabute Guilliman, devised a new organizational structure to limit the Angels of Death from once again threatening the Imperium. Drafting the Codex Astartes, the outlines for the new order of war, each of the legions would be broken down into smaller chapters comprised of 1,000 Space Marines. The time of rebirth had begun, and each of the storied defenders of humanity remaining loyal to the Imperium formed new brotherhoods derived from their gloried legions of old. Yet among all the legions, many retained the leadership of their Primarch, with but a handful still grieving for the loss of their Gene-sire. The Iron Hands had long languished due to the death of their Primarch, Ferrus Manus, yet during the final battle to destroy the War Master of Chaos, another vaunted son of the Emperor had been slain. Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels, had fought valiantly to oppose his corrupted brother, Horus Lupercal, and regardless of his foresight knowing his death to be inevitable, had sacrificed his life to stave off the darkness. The Loyalists had won, yet with the fresh scars of victory etched into their skin and souls, none incurred more suffering than the Scions of the Blood. Their father's death had allowed for the Master of Mankind to vanquish his fallen protege, yet had also incurred grievous injury during their duel. Among the captains of the Harrowed and Mourning Legion, Nasir Amit of the 5th Company looked upon the tattered glories of his legion and spat upon the notion that their brotherhood should be further diminished. Reluctantly accepting the appointment as chapter master of the newly founded successor chapter, the Flesh Tearers, the remnants of the 5th Company under the banner of the moniker of their ruthless leader pursued the fleeing traitor legions with slaughter foremost on their minds. Sharpening their flaying knives and preparing their armaments during their voyage aboard their acting fortress monastery, the battle barge Victus, the Flesh Tearers demanded oceans of traitor blood for the death of their beloved liege. crusading for years in their efforts to purge the galaxy clean of their duplicitous and malevolent former comrades. The Flesh Tearers left scores of butchered foes in their path and began to earn their reputation as the most untamed and brutal warriors of the Imperium. Their numerous campaigns across 100 worlds, causing untold misery to both the wicked and innocents of the Void alike, the reputation of the most bloodthirsty scions of Sanguinius spiraled into notorious, frenzied massacres. Several Astartes chapters refused to cooperate with the volatile butchers, including their compatriot Sons of the Blood. For 2 centuries the chapter remained mobile, until Chapter Master Nasir Amit resolved to find a world to call their own. Locating a nigh inhospitable death world to the galactic west, Amit proclaimed during his declaration of conquest during 238.M31, "We named it Cretacia, from the ancient Baal Sanskrit meaning birth of wrath. Like us, Cretacia was a consummate killer. Violence lives in its very air. Its winds were the lash of a terrible beast, striking out to flay us from the skies, its clouds void-dark phantoms whose acid tears strip the crimson from our warplate. Death met us at every turn, tested our resolve, and measures our strength. We were as the angels from the old Terran legend, trapped in hell itself. Yet for all our trials, Cretacea's wrath was far from spent." Its surface inhabited by colossal beasts, magma geysers, and electrical storms, the regular tectonic shifts of its crust erupting with lava, boasted only a handful of human settlements, populated by feral yet hardy people. The Neolithic warrior culture of the humans proving to be a reliable source of recruits to the chapter, the Flesh Tearers replenished their reduced strength. Their tendency to succumb to the Black Rage intensifying in orders of magnitude over time, the chapter staved off its influence for only 200 cycles. By the time of the 41st millennium, only 4 combat-ready companies would remain unafflicted by the Rage, or lying cold in their graves, for the chapter's tendency to shred their opponents to ribbons yielded among the highest casualty rates of any chapter. Regularly questioned by the Emperor's Holy Inquisition in order to ascertain their purity of cause and efficacy, actions such as the Kalan massacre of the 36th millennium only worsened their relations with the wider Imperium. Under the watchful eye of the Ordo Hereticus, despite their long-standing service of over 10 millennia, during 837.M41, Inquisitor Corvin Herald boarded the flagship Victus to seek an audience with their current chapter master, Gabriel Seth. Enquiring as to the events of the Shrine World of Lucid Prime, regarding their confrontation made against the revered primogenitor chapter, the Space Wolves, reports from the Vilca Fenrica cited their extermination of civilians and exhibited signs of chaos corruption. A decoy in truth, the true Inquisitor Herald had infiltrated the Victus in search of proof pertaining to their gene flaw. Finding an Astartes chained within the bowels of the vessel, fully surrendered to the Black Rage, the Inquisitor would be discovered by Chapter Nepolis and captured. Librarian Balthiel linked Herald's mind to that of Gabriel's and forced him to endure the full measure of the Red Thirst within Seth for mere moments. Driving the Inquisitor to the brink of insanity, Seth explained that he was not worthy to judge his men for the burden they carried, for they lived with such all-consuming fury every moment of their lives. Allowing Herald to depart the Victus, Seth removed Corvin's rosette of office and decreed him unworthy of serving the Inquisition. For the Angels of Death, though not beyond reproach, would not be besmirched by mewling bureaucrats or conceited mortals. Despite their fractious relationship with their primogenitor chapter, the Blood Angels, the long-standing feud between the brash sons of Amit and ostentatious ranks of the Lord of Angels would soon be tested. During 988.M41, a tendril of the Tyranid Hive Fleet Leviathan endangered the Cryptus Shield. The first line of defense against an invasion of the Blood Angels' homeworld, every planet within the Cryptus system perished as the maw of the Great Devourer consumed all life within. Rallying as many successor chapters of the Blood as possible to defend the holy site of their entombed Genesire and the ancestral homeworld of the Great Angel, Lord Commander Dante beseeched his kin to defend Baal. The first to heed the call to action, the Flesh Tearers met with the Blood Angels and set aside their personal grudges for the greater good of their chapters. Seeking redemption in the presence of their peers, the Flesh Tearers fought valiantly to defend the great Angel's home. Entrusted by Lord Dante with the ancient relic, the Reliquary of Ammit, within the golden stasis field capsule crafted by the Flesh Tearer, within contained the last remaining feather of the great Angel. Said to be taken from the war zone of the Siege of Terra, the presence of the Holy Quill imbued Seth's warriors with divine peace and prevented their ranks from succumbing to their gene flaws. Scarcely 400 Astartes in number at the beginning of the Krypton War, 5 understrength companies fought within the war zones of Armageddon, far from the devastation unfolding. Hoping to die as martyrs of the blood and vindicate their long besmirched legacy as mindless killers, the Flesh Tearers led by Gabriel Seth were now relieved of their first for vitae. Reconciling their differences, Dante and Seth commanded the final defensive maneuvers to preserve the Arx Angelicum and the priceless soil of Baal. The Swarm Lord of the High Fleet critically wounded Lord Commander Dante, and in their moment of inevitable defeat, an unforeseen force of avenging angels joined the fray. Rabute Guilliman, the returned son of the Emperor at the head of his gargantuan Indomitus Crusade fleet, unleashed innumerable warriors clad in all manner of heraldries upon the battlefield. Laying waste to the Tyranids, warriors clad in unknown markings of power armor and wielding armaments of immense technological brilliance purged the Tyranids from the surface of Baal. With the war won in the name of the Imperium, Lord Commander Rabute Guilliman appointed Commander Dante as the Regent of Imperium Nihilus, due to the Cicatrix Maledictum or Great Rift carving the galaxy in half. Bestowing each successor of the Blood new Primaris Space Marines to replenish their ranks. Though seemingly stronger and purer than their firstborn peers, Seth looked at his new warrior breed with disgust. Accepting the Primaris within his own chapter, Gabriel knew in his heart that their seeming immunity to the call of the Red First and Black Rage would prove antithetical to the Flesh Tearers' embodiment and harnessing of their flaws. Observing such novice Astartes, raised far from the culture of Cretacia or even Baal, these Ultramarines in all but name would need to undergo drastic changes in order to prove themselves worthy to bear their heraldry. Yet only time will tell if such Space Marines are capable of upholding their duty to the Angel and earning the respect of the Guardian of Rage. Refusing to imbibe their neophytes with blood transfusions alike to their former traditions as Blood Angels, using the relic known as the Red Grail, many scholars of Imperial history believe the eschewing of this practice to have exacerbated their gene flaw of the Red First and Black Rage. Moving from warzone to warzone during their initial 200 years as a crusading fleet, the Flesh Tearers had been exiled in all but record by the Blood Angels from their own territories, and as such required a base of operations of their own. Cretacia proved to be a perfect recruitment ground for such feral killers, and with time, mastering their hunts against the colossal beasts of the planet and induction of fresh initiates into their order. The population of Cretacia, inordinately athletic and with excellent instincts for survival, the Flesh Tearers could not have hoped for a more fitting breed of humans to induct into their ranks. Despite their obvious signs as a civilization brought low via societal collapse and the loss of spoken language, these primitive souls were taken first as prisoners of the chapter, before being subjected to examination tests of physiological, mental, and spiritual purity. Respectably pure in their genetic biology, the Flesh Tearers began to implant their new subjects with gene seed and reversed their communicative deficiencies through indoctrination. Fortifying their new fortress monastery and embarking upon their nearby vicinities of space, the ascended warriors of Cretacia soon proved to be a boon for the safety of the sector. Despite their reinvigorated and replenished state, it would not take long for the looming threat of the Black Rage to ravage their numbers, and as the millennia passed, their genetic purity began to wane. Said to be hastened by a genetic mutation combined with their martial traditions, no chapter of the Blood has suffered more than the Flesh Tearers in surrendering its battle brothers to the madness of the Rage. Rejecting the insanguination ceremonies of their primogenitor, the Flesh Tearers' lack of their Primarch's salving blood
causes them to be consumed with an endless battle to deny their thirst and reject the delights of slaughter. Said to be gifted a potential lifespan in excess of any of their Astartes peers, such a boon is mitigated by their low life expectancy due to conflict. Coming close to extinction during the 41st millennium, under the stewardship of their current chapter master Gabriel Seth, the chapter has determined to fight and die as valiant warriors before the clutches of the Rage lead them to commit further ruin. Now reinforced with a stock of Primaris Space Marines, the seeming immunity of their reinforcements, though said to offset their losses to the clutches of the Gene Floor, have yet to be proven beyond doubt. Conducting nightly bloodletting rituals to purify their souls, the Sons of Ammit do little to stave off the call to gorge on blood, and appointment to the ever-burgeoning Death Company seems inevitable to many. Increasing the appointment of Battle Brothers to the role of apothecaries to aid in recovering their often unsalvageable gene seed, their tendency to charge headfirst into violent melees often causes the slain to lose recoverable organs to chain blades and explosives. Due to their induction of vast quantities of Primaris Space Marines into the fold, the Flesh Tearers once again after long millennia field full-strength battle and reserve companies. Half of their number of firstborn Marine stock, many veterans of the devastation of Baal field officer positions within the chapter and watch over their Primaris kin for signs of the Gene Floor. Prior to the defense of Baal, the chapter divided its elite First Company veterans among each of their understrength companies, forming so-called Vanguard Strike Forces, comprised of 3 tactical squads, 1 assault squad, 1 Vanguard veteran squad, and a single Furioso dreadnought, proved effective in staving off the forces of the Great Devourer. With the remainder of such veteran survivors returning to the positions of the First Company, it has proven deadlier than ever. The appointment to the chapter's Death Company, seemingly inevitable to all veterans of the chapter, proven too deadly to die in battle. With grim resolve, even the most junior of Astartes take no heed for their own self-preservation in combat, should it provide a more glorious end than their descent into madness. Unlike their peers such as the Blood Angels, the Flesh Tearers do not grant merciful death to those brothers who survive their first combat within the Death Company. High Chaplain Apollos binds the Death Company and looks upon such venerable survivors as the purest state a Flesh Tearer can become, and as such, recaptures and redeploys such rabid warriors to unleash Sanguinius' judgment upon the battlefield. Confronting the High Chaplain of the Blood Angels, Astaroth the Grim for slaying a Death Company of the Flesh Tearers without sanction, Gabriel Seth allows none to cull his men, no matter their sanity, for even in such a feral state, they shall fight in the name of the Angel. Contained within the strike cruiser, Death's Cowl, none save the Chapter Master and High Chaplain of the Flesh Tearers know the full extent of Death Company Astartes still in service. Yet under the watchful eye of the Death Cowl's commanding officer, Chaplain Zuphius, they shall be unleashed whenever called upon to earn redemption in slaughter. It does not take a genius of military strategy to assume the methods used by the Flesh Tearers in combat, for if anything, the Sons of Ammit are the epitome of a blunt yet effective tool. Nuance is among the least respected virtues of the Sons of Cretacia, for each and every engagement is made with the implicit threat of the Black Rage spilling forth from any number of the Battle Brothers at any given time. Independent in nature, each of the battle companies prior to their reinforcement of Primaris Space Marines trained with cross-disciplines to better serve the chapter. Each warrior may change from tactical to assault to squad or devastator role from skirmish to skirmish should it be required of him, and as such the veterans of the chapter have a wealth of experience to draw from. Though trained to the standard of all contemporaries of the Angels of Death, the Flesh Tearers seldom use certain tactics and strategies in battle, due to the ever-changing nature of their battle lines. Melee combat championed above all methods of war by the chapter, the sight of a company of Flesh Tearers brandishing chainswords and axes in full charge is among the most terrifying sights to behold. Planning for outbreaks of the Black Rage throughout their advances, the senior officers of the chapter must account for contingencies of outbursts of unforeseen friendly fire and carnage every step of their campaigns. The vast majority of their ranks composed of assault marines, the best laid plans of the captains of the chapter can be undone in an instant, and as such, the fielding of Devastator Marines is largely ineffective. Even the tactical units within the chapter are undermined by outbursts of the Red First, causing valuable armaments unbefitting a berserker to be relinquished and lost in battle. The sergeants of the chapter holding their forces within long-range fire only reluctantly. Their long experience of seeing their ranks descend into bloody rampages precludes their strategies from being too far from direct melee range. Despite the inflexibility of their battle doctrine, there are no chapters of the Astartes imbued with fury alike to the Flesh Tearers, and it is feasible that none among the Angels of Death can match their ferocity or capacity for butchery in close quarters. The majority of their vehicles being rhinos and razorbacks, all other methods of armored warfare cannot compete with the ability to transport hordes of frenzied killers to the front line. Veterancy is not a position to aspire to within the chapter, for the most heroic and martially skilled warriors are rarely destined to have a glorious death before the call of the Black Rage claims them. On occasion, such old ones are preserved within stasis sarcophagi and dreadnoughts to preserve their martial genius and stave off the call of the Rage. Their time served as dreadnoughts short-lived, such old ones are deployed within the ranks of the Death Company, and with their death, free up the use of the dreadnought chassis to contain the next venerated war hero before his inevitable downfall. Screaming a war cry unique to their chapter in battle, the amplified shouted chant of the chapter is so primal in its nature that their enemies are stunned into submission before being ripped limb from limb. Cherishing the legacy of their chapter within their hearts, the inescapable decline of their glories has haunted the minds of each chapter master to inherit the leadership of the Flesh Tearers. Cursed beyond all measure of their kindred chapters, the Flesh Tearers alone truly understand the depths of madness that their gene flaw incurs. Embracing the notion that their legacy is destined to either extinction in a violent yet righteous moment of glory, or slowly diminish with prolonged doomed attempts to shoulder their burden, the fate of the chapter has been called into question with the introduction of Primaris Space Marines. Due to their fortitude in rejecting the Red First and Black Rage, many including Chapter Master Gabriel Seth see such inheritors of the Flesh Tearers' hard-won and maligned glories as unworthy. For what is a Flesh Tearer bereft of disciplined and controlled wrath? Surely just another chapter of the Avenging Sun, masquerading as a true scion of the Great Angel. Their nature molded through suffering and prevailing against the bleakest of toil, these new upstart pretenders have much to prove in order to be accepted as true sons of Ammit. Regardless of their newly appointed and stringent believers in the methods of the Lord of Ultramar, the Flesh Tearer veterans shall not deny their savage methods, nor allow their green initiates to forego their participation in their methods of waging war. Constantly hounded by agents of the Inquisition and derided for their purges, the Flesh Tearers shall never seek forgiveness for their means of purging heretics across the stars. Persecution forever at their heels, with their intervention of the defense of Baal, their strengthened alliance with the Regent of Imperium Nihilus has regardless brought the chapter a temporary reprieve. Among the most striking warriors of the Angels of Death, their panoplies exemplify their fell reputation and savage nature. Maroon red paint covers their torso, arms and legs, whilst deepest jet black contrasts starkly upon their helmets, backpacks and pauldrons. Designating their battle line role with white symbols upon their right pauldron, alike to their Blood Angels peers, symbols such as skulls and blood droplets are imposed on the design, alike to the outline structure of their primogenitor. However, unlike the Blood Angels, rather than placing symbols upon their right knee plates to distinguish their squad, the Flesh Tearers utilize simple, low Gothic numerals. Librarians and Tech Marines of the chapter adopt the conventions of the Codex Astartes by painting their armor blue and Mars red respectively. Similarly, the chaplains of the Order couple their skull helmet designs with purest black skeletal armor. The symbol of the chapter, a serrated blade centered with a single drop of red blood, symbolizes the chain fist first carried into battle by their founder, Nasir Ammit. Its design now a symbol capable of striking fear into the hearts of even the ranks of traitor Astartes. Any who gaze upon such a promise of violence shall pray for a swift, if not merciful, death. Here come the red, they stalk you while you sleep. Here come the red, your blood do they seek. Here come the red, to your soul they lay claim, and you'll never be seen in the sunlight again.
The Orders Pronatus have the responsibility of maintaining and blessing the many banners and symbols of the Orders militant. They have even been called upon to reconsecrate the livery of other imperial bodies, as was the case when they repaired the chapter banner of the Lamenter's chapter of the Adeptus Astartes after its involvement in the Badab uprising. It is said that the Sisters Pronatus who repaired the banner wept openly as they did so. So terrible to contemplate were the sins of the Lamenters. To this day, the standard is known as the Banner of Tears. The Adeptus Astartes forged the path of salvation, emancipation, and redemption for the waning Imperium. Forged from the Emperor's sanctified will, armed with his greatest weapons, and clad in his divine protection, there are no warriors more revered as his angels. Yet among their ranks, one such chapter stands as the most tragic disciples of their warrior creed, and despite their best efforts, prove to be the recipients of unrelenting sorrow. The long-suffering sons of the great angel, the Lamenters. Among the chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, there are none more intimately familiar with misfortune and strife. Founded during the 36th millennium as one of the so-called cursed founding chapters, alongside the Minotaurs, Sons of Antaeus, Firehawks, Flame Falcons, Blood Gorgons, and Black Dragons. The attribution of such a maligned founding was not made lightly. The Black Dragons had produced mutations within their genetic code, causing their bones to mutate into sharpened appendages, whilst the Blood Gorgons had been declared excommunicate traitoris only 6 decades into their service. Seeking to remove the genetic flaws and deficiencies within the genetic code of each chapter to which the founding was derived, the Lamenters would be no exception. Their noble lineage of the Blood Angels, though venerated, had nonetheless drawn censure and scrutiny by the Imperium for their bloodthirsty rampages caused by their successors. Removing the curse of both the Red Thirst and Black Rage from their genetic coding, the meddling of the Mechanicus, though successful in diminishing one curse, would engender another. Steeped in a palpable aura of misfortune, the Lamenters, despite their virtuous nature, would forever endure an endless slew of unfortunate events. Shunned by their fellow Astartes due to their recorded campaigns costing the lives of their own kin and allies alike in excess of even their junior chapter peers, the crestfallen sons of Sanguinius, through no fault of their own, have never achieved salvation from their plight. As the remainder of the cursed founding chapters spread dissent and unrest throughout the galaxy, the Lamenters chose to distance themselves from such turmoil and departed to the fringes of space. Roaming as a fleet-based chapter, the Lamenters sought to prevent their involvement from costly civil wars and political quagmires. Serving for over a millennium as stalwart warriors of the Emperor, the Lamenters faced Xenos threats throughout the western fringe of the Imperium, in their efforts to defend humanity. Earning an enviable and reputed record of victories, battle honors, and relief efforts, regardless of their plaudits, the Astartes of the Lamenters could never prevent catastrophe from rearing its ugly head. Their first noted crusade, the Siege of Corilla of Abaddon the Despoiler's 9th Black Crusade during 537.M38, required every able-bodied crusading chapter to aid in repelling the War Master's forces. Fighting alongside the Mortifactus chapter, the Sons of Guilliman refused outright to stand alongside the Lamenters and abandoned Corilla to prevent further ruin. Standing alone against the Black Legion, the Lamenters fought a desperate battle for 6 weeks, incurring horrendous losses. Reinforced by the White Scars and Ultramarines chapters, only 200 Lamenters survived their defiant stand against the Despoiler. Traversing through the warp Imperial records would deem the chapter lost, with no hope of renewal, yet be shocked to receive reports of their beleaguered fleet returning to real space 1 century following their disappearance, slowly rebuilding their fleet and chapter numbers until their replenishment during the millennia to follow. The Lamenters now patrol the galactic core to fight and die far from the populace of humanity. Yet with the petition for aid by the High Lords of Terror during 587.M41, a threat required opposing within the Maelstrom zone of the galaxy. The second largest warp rift known to Imperial space, this naturally occurring rend in the galaxy had proven to be a nest of chaos spawn and heretical filth, exceeded in strength only by the denizens of the Eye of Terror. Requiring guardians to prevent the spill of corruption from spreading across the Imperium, a founding of chapters were required to stand vigil upon the precipice of the Great Legion. Assembling the Lamenters, Mantis Warriors, and the renowned Astral Claws chapter as their leaders, the Maelstrom Warders would be tasked with patrolling the expanse of the Maelstrom's western proximity to best oppose piratical raids and chaos incursions. Taking to their appointment with pride and zealous fervor, the Lamenters with years of service would form a strong bond of camaraderie with their Warder's senior officer and chapter master of the Astral Claws, Luft Huron. Offered respect and honor, unlike to so many of their previous alliances with other Astartes chapters, the compassion of the Astral Claws would prove their undoing in the years to follow. Aiding in joint campaigns on occasion, such as the Caradon campaign of 698.M41 alongside the Ultramarines, Angels of Absolution, Silver Skulls, and Marines Errant, and the Corinth Crusade of 701.M41, the Lamenters dealing with the chapter master of the 13th, Marneus Calgar, earned their chapter great renown and repute for their deeds. Freeing 3 million enslaved souls from the oppression of the Orc Xenos, the Lamenters once more gave their lives dearly to save the civilian populace of the planet of Slaughterhouse Free. Though succumbing to their long-repressed black rage, the Lamenters still remaining in a sane state would be forced to detonate seismic charges to collapse the underground tunnels of Slaughterhouse Free, causing the deaths of millions of the human slaves. Understanding of their duty, the prisoners uttered a prayer to the Emperor as the rubble collapsed on top of them, for they would die as free men and women, emancipated from their greenskin jailers. Crippling the Orc clan's infrastructure, though considered a great victory by the Imperium, the Lamenters' successful campaign soured with their knowledge of the many deaths incurred through their intervention. Refusing to accept a gift of an Iron Halo by Marneus Calgar as recognition for their deeds, the Lamenters, though accused of great insult by the Crusade's commanding officers, would receive no bad blood from the Lord of Ultramar. However, even in the wake of hundreds of their men and millions of their charges lost to the flames of such a terrible war, the tribulations of the Lamenters had only just begun. During 901.M41, Luft Huron, chapter master of the Astral Claws, would succeed the Maelstrom Warders from the Imperium. Upholding the autonomous nature of the Adeptus Astartes above even the authority of the High Lords of Terror, the hubris of the Tyrant of Badab would not go unpunished. Seeking to lead a crusade to cleanse the Maelstrom once and for all of its corrupted denizens, Huron's command saw to the end of tithes to the Imperium in materials and resources, in order to fuel his ambitions to purge the Warp Rift. Allied with the Mantis Warriors, Executioners and Lamenters, as loyalist chapters such as the Firehawks, Salamanders, Fire Angels, Nova Marines, Red Scorpions, Exorcists, Howling Griffins, Marines Errant, Raptors, Sons of Medusa, Minotaurs, Carcharodons, and Star Phantoms entered the fray. The next 12 years of conflict proved to be the greatest stain of dishonor the Lamenters chapter could ever hope to achieve. Incurring massive casualties whilst fighting against the Minotaurs chapter, the Lamenters surrendered from the war during 908.M41 to prevent their chapter's extinction. Only 311 Astartes in number, each surviving member of the chapter would be imprisoned within the prison hulk of Sagan II for the remainder of the war. Brought before the Constitutorial Court and put on trial for their crimes, the Lamenters for their actions received the judgment of 5 chapter masters of the Astartes whom had not partaken in the conflict. According to Astartes tradition, the Lamenters, once found guilty for being found in breach of the outlines of the Codex Astartes and broken their covenant with the Emperor, must endure a penitent crusade. Pride had been their downfall, not treachery, and as a result the Lamenters had been given an opportunity to redeem themselves in the eyes of their Space Marine kin. For 100 years, the Lamenters must earn the forgiveness of the Master of Mankind by undertaking campaigns across the stars against his enemies, with no replenishment of their numbers nor support from the Imperium. Their fate left in the hands of the Emperor, the Adeptus Sororitas mended their tattered and broken battle standard and saw to its purification as they embarked on their quest for redemption. Openly weeping as they mended the banner of the Lamenters, such was their purity that as they weaved the fabric to its former glory, the Sisters of Battle did contemplate the Emperor's great sacrifice in the name of humanity, and did truly know the terrible depths of the sin the Lamenters had wrought. Embarking upon their penitent crusade, the Lamenters fight with unrelenting yet remorseful fury as the weight of their past crimes pushes them to breaking point. The shame of their failures to protect the innocent, defend the Imperium, and embody the Emperor's holy will, the Lamenters seek out their duty to absolve themselves of sin despite their endless misfortune. Combating the Tyranid High Fleet Kraken during the Second Tyrannic War of 992.M41, the Lamenters could not hope to face a more deadly foe at such depleted numbers. Slowing the advance of the Great Devourer, their last stand upon the planet of Malvolion allowed for many Imperial citizens to escape at the cost of more lives sacrificed for their honor. Barely 4 whole companies of the chapter remained as the chapter continued to face High Fleet Kraken for a further year of conflict. Aiding the Red Hunters chapter during their battles against Kraken, the task force assigned to track the Lamenters' progress in their crusade suffered heavy losses alongside their calamitous allies. Reduced further to 3 battle companies during 999.M41, the Lord Commander of the Imperium Nihilus, Dante, would call upon the Lamenters for aid. The Tyranid menace and forces of the Ruinous Powers sought to destroy the homeworld of their primogenitor chapter, the Blood Angels, and would require every successor of the Blood to prevent its devastation. Yet among all chapters of the Blood, the Lamenters, by virtue of their depleted numbers, abstained from aiding their brothers-in-arms. The only Blood Angel successor, absent from its founder's direst hour of need, the Lamenters have further fractured their standing with their closest allies. And in these dark times, none can be certain if such a beleaguered and lamentable chapter is capable of surviving further losses. During their service as a fully replenished chapter, the Lamenters bore a unique tradition among the warriors of the Blood. Seemingly unshackled from the flaws of the Red First and Black Rage, their compliance to the Codex Astartes in principle allowed for the chapter to be exemplars of the optimal potential of each successor of the Ninth Legion. Ascribing to the Codex's outlines of 100 Astartes per battle company, during their peak strength, the chapter comprised of 4 battle companies and 1 company of veterans, Devastator Reserves, Tactical Reserves, Assault Reserves, and Scouts. Experts at flexible battlefield deployments, combining their forces into effective strike forces, the Lamenters champion practicality above all virtues of war. Recruiting their aspirants from feudal worlds and distant colonies prior to their penitent crusade, as a fleet-based chapter, the Lamenters do not favor a single world or its populace as a means to draw fresh recruits. Fighting without direct support from Imperial forces for much of their service, their independent nature has instilled within them a self-reliant reputation uncommon for a Codex-compliant chapter. Favoring shock assault tactics such as drop pod assaults with close air support, the chapter's reliance on Thunderhawk gunships and Storm Ravens facilitate predictable yet effective tactics. Their panoplies of war more alike to a Codex-compliant chapter than that of their own lineage as sons of Sanguinius, the chapter retains few relics or cultural trappings from the culture of Baal. Their command hierarchy incorporating the sanguinary priesthood of the chapter, these chaplains are known as the Calyx by their peers. Monitoring their kin for signs of the Red First or Black Rage, though the chapter has recently founded a death company, it is rare for such damned souls to fill its ranks. integral for the spiritual well-being of this tormented chapter, it is not hyperbole to state that without the Calyx, the Lamenter's chapter would have surrendered to their woes long ago. The gene seed of the chapter, though adapted to diminish the effects of their gene curse, is little understood by the genitors of the Imperium. An alluring prospect for the scions of the blood to alleviate their suffering, such experimentation's likely mutation of their inherited curse into one arguably far worse has prevented future study and experimentation. Seen as a necessary characteristic of their creed by the Astartes such as the Flesh Tearers, to remove the imprecation of their bloodline is to court with disaster. Seen by their kin as damned souls unable to redeem themselves from their fell adversity, the temperament and idiosyncrasies of the Lamenter's Astartes seem unfavorable to even the most troubled angels of the blood. For it is said that among the Lamenters, the grief of the loss of their Primarch is felt more keenly than any of their peers, which as a result casts a melancholic pall throughout their ranks. Clad in gleaming yellow armor, the symbol of their chapter, a bleeding heart upon a black and white checkerboard design, is worn solemnly upon their left pauldron. Their squad specialty, whether it be battle line, close support, fire support, veteran or command staff, is worn on their right pauldron, a white low Gothic numeral centered upon their symbol to identify their squad number. The color of their left knee plate indicates their company, as is outlined by the Codex Astartes. Each color is identical to the conventions of the Codex. A sight of salvation to the naive of the Imperium, and a foreboding warning to their veteran allies, the Lamenters, though valiant in their intentions, bring both hope and despair in their wake. Harbingers of bitter victories and glorious defeats, regardless of their continued misfortune, they shall never falter in their duty to carry their burden without apprehension or rejection of the Emperor's will. For it is believed by their current chapter master, Malakim Foros, that with every tribulation they endure, they shall overcome and grow stronger from its temperance. And it is the hope of the Imperium that such posturing is not proven to be mistaken. For those we cherish, we die in glory. The Blood Scythes are an Ultima founding successor chapter of the Blood Angels. Raised during 999.M41 entirely from the stock of Primaris Space Marines, the Astartes of the Blood Scythes, though seen as green in the eyes of their peers, are swiftly proving their mettle in combat. Uniting with their primogenitor chapter, following the relief effort of the devastation of Baal, enacted by the avenging son Rabute Guilliman, the chapter has been quick to adopt the traditions of the Blood Angels. Rapidly earning a reputation as honorable warriors, the Blood Scythes are imbued with the zeal of the mightiest deeds of the Great Angel. Their first chapter campaign, the Battle of Akrabella, launched within the Red Scar, wages to this day as the chapter combats the Tyranid Hive Fleet, Leviathan. Aiding their might to the Halo campaign by defending the Shrine World from the Splinter Fleet, alongside the Cruor Blades and Flesh Eaters, they have earned great respect and plaudits. Clad in white power armor, trimmed with black, the Aquilas and Imperialis on their breastplates symbolize their devotion to spill their blood in the name of the Imperium. Designating their iconography in line with the outlines of their primogenitor, the Blood Scythes utilize blood drop icons to symbolize their company numbers placed upon their right pauldron and their squad designation on their knee plate. Upon their left pauldron, the chapter symbol of a black scythe, weeping a single red droplet of blood from its tip, bodes ill for their enemies should they be unfortunate enough to be within reach of their blades. For though among the most novice of all Astartes chapters, the Blood Scythes have already proven themselves to be a reliably deadly adversary. The Knights of the Chalice are a successor chapter of the Blood Angels. Created during the Ultima founding of 999.M41, all warriors of the chapter are comprised of Primaris Space Marines. Deployed during the Indomitus Crusade to test their abilities, the Knights of the Chalice would be renowned for their aggressive orbital strike maneuvers and proclivity to deploy vast amounts of Inceptor squads to scour their enemies' defenses.
supporting such engagements with Reaver squads to sow disorder and confusion among their opponents' ranks. The Knights of the Chalice are adept at subterfuge. Clad in bright red ceramite to honor their primogenitor, their Mark X power armor bears black helmets, Aquilas, and Imperialises. Utilizing the blood drop heraldry scheme of their forebears, each Astartes designates their company number on their right pauldron and heraldic squad motif on their right knee guard. Wearing the symbol of their chapter on their left pauldron, a black chalice centered on a crimson field. Though their iconography can be misinterpreted as that of the Blood Drinkers chapter, their methods of war could not be more dissimilar. Swift in their conquest of rebellious and Xenos-occupied planets, though much mystery still surrounds the chapter, they have proven to be promising acolytes of the Blood. The Atlantean Spears are a successor chapter of the Blood Angels. Waging war for millennia in the attempt to pacify the Enclave of Alkaina and the Sanctuary of Constantia within the Segmentum Tempestus, the Atlantean Spears utilize their many librarians' gifts of precognition to thwart the many threats to their domain. Ignoring the petition for aid from Lord Commander Dante to combat the Tyranid Hive Fleet of Leviathan during the devastation of Baal, their own preoccupations in defending the Imperium from Xenos and heretical invasions prevented their involvement. Sending a portion of their strength to serve the returned Primarch, Rabute Guilliman of the Ultramarines, during the Indomitus Crusade, their Task Force 11 of Battlegroup Kalides within the Crusade Fleet Primus fought against the Necrons during the Pariah Nexus campaign. Further entrenching their position within the Argovan campaign within proximity of the Pariah Nexus region, to this day, the chapter devotes the majority of their strength to quell the Sarachan and Urusk Necron dynasties. Spearheaded by High Field Marshal Jan Redrenko Hienflagger, their efforts have proven valuable in opposing the ancient threat. Bearing teal-blue ceramite trimmed with gold and yellow, these ostentatious warriors appoint their tactical designation upon their right pauldron with black paint. Utilizing a heraldry scheme unique to their chapter upon their right knee plate, such icons denote their squad number in a similar fashion to their primogenitor, whilst a black high Gothic numeral indicates their company on their left knee. Battle Brothers of the chapter retain gold and yellow paint on their helmets, while sergeants affix a small silvered skull icon upon their brow. Veterans bear black helmets, whilst veteran sergeants affix a gold and yellow vertical stripe to their forehead, centered by a silvered skull. Lieutenants bear the gold and yellow helmet and paint a black vertical stripe upon their forehead, centered once more with the silver skull to denote officer rank. Upon their left pauldron, the Astartes of the chapter bear the symbol of a black trident upon a teal field of blue, and march into the battle ready to hunt the prey of the void. Additionally assigning 300 Battle Brothers to aid in the Octarius War, to prevent further catastrophe from spilling forth from the region. With their number spread among the most deadly of all such campaigns, many wonder if the Atlantean Spears can survive the relentless onslaught of such benighted foes. The Blood Dragons are a successor chapter of the Blood Angels. Created during an unknown founding, their mysterious origins have only bolstered their infamous and feared reputation. Harbingers of ruination, caring little for civilian casualties or plights, the Blood Dragons desire only the utter extermination of the Emperor's enemies. Believing that the Master of Mankind will save the worthy on their behalf, the warriors of the chapter vindicate any method acceptable in purging the wicked, for the truly loyal subjects of the Imperium shall be stayed their wrath. Clad in dark red ceramite with black trim and bearing a golden aquila or imperialis on their chest, the Blood Dragons utilize the heraldic blood drop symbol of their primogenitor, alike to many of their peers. Designating their company number on their right shoulder and squad designation on their left knee plate, the chapter's symbol of a large black dragon's head, loosing a single droplet of blood from its maw, instills fear into the hearts of both the heretic and the innocent. Reinforced with Primaris Space Marines, the enigmatic and ruthless chapter has proven especially effective at obscuring and redacting all records of their homeworld, campaigns, and deeds. Though all that needs to be known is that their presence during any skirmish or war zone is an ill omen for all involved. The Blood Swords are a successor chapter of the Blood Angels. Created during an unknown founding, utilizing the gene seed of the blood, despite their assertions to not be of the bloodline of Sanguinius, no records indicate another source for their origins. Their homeworld of Jaggerfall, within close proximity to the planet Draconif, ruled by the Space Marine chapter the Star Dragons. Due to their close proximity, the cousin chapters have fostered a strong bond of respect and kinship. Their successful campaigns further bolstering their friendship, such a bond would be threatened with the mysterious events surrounding the Blood Swords' banishment from Jaggerfall. Undertaking a penitent crusade to redeem themselves in the eyes of the Master of Mankind, the Blood Swords would once more be supported by the Star Dragons in their quest for redemption. Renewing their bond of fraternity with no talk of debts nor honor, the two Astartes factions transcended the bonds of brotherhood, typical of even blood-related chapters. When cooperating in battle, the chapters unleash immensely efficient and deadly maneuvers beyond the efficacy of among the most revered Astartes chapters. Purging the Anando system during 845.M41, causing 100 billion Imperial citizens' lives in the process of exterminatus, by the end of the 41st millennium, the Blood Swords embarked upon a venture to define a cleaner legacy of their actions. Joining forces with the Star Dragons in their traversal to the Eye of Terror, the chapters have formed a containment fleet designated Kappa to contain the threats of Chaos Invasion. Deployed to the Balinor system to investigate the mysterious space hulk, Accursed Eternity, alongside the Star Dragons during 998.M41, the Order Malleus's intervention further exacerbated their purge of the vessel due to an unspoken debt to the Inquisition haunting the Star Dragons. Awakening an ancient evil within the Space Hulk, a demon of Tzeentch, long imprisoned by Kairos Fateweaver within the Accursed Eternity. With the death of the Senior Inquisitor, Remigius, the chapters fired upon the Space Hulk with every Voidcraft at their disposal. Banishing the Accursed Eternity once more into the Warp, the Blood Swords and Star Dragons survived the ordeal, yet would be separated due to a petition for aid the following year. The devastation of Baal soon ravaged the domain of the Blood Angels chapter, the Baal system, with Lord Commander Dante petitioning aid from all successors of the Blood to join him in defending the homeworld of the Great Angel. Aiding in the defense of the sacred golden sarcophagus of Sanguinius from the clutches of the fell Blood Fiend clones created by the Blood Angel's apothecary, Casus, the Blood Swords tithed a number of their men to help replenish the ranks of the Blood Angels chapter. Defending Baal from the invasion of the Tyranid High Fleet of Leviathan, the Blood Swords once more upheld their bonds of fraternal duty in preventing the downfall of the Blood Angels. Clad in crimson power armor with unified trim across all symbols of their armor, their left pauldron bears the symbol of their chapter, a double-edged sword dripping droplets of blood, each centered upon a field of white. Choosing not to employ the trappings of their primogenitor to display their company nor squad designations, the Blood Swords utilized the prescribed doctrines of the Codex Astartes, using black paint with squad specializations upon their right pauldrons. Continuing their penitent crusade alongside their stalwart friends the Star Dragons, these inseparable brethren continue to patrol the Eye of Terror for signs of Chaos Invasion. Their bonds of camaraderie epitomizing the compassion and valor of the Great Angel and stoic resolve of the Gorgon.
The Carmine Blades are a successor chapter of the Blood Angels. Their founding unknown, what can be gleaned from Imperial records is that the chapter hails from the feral world of Haldroth. Originally known as the Swords of Haldroth, for much of its service the chapter had been mistaken as a successor of the Ultramarines. Whether this was done intentionally or merely a clerical error is unknown. Drawing the attention of High Chaplain of the Blood Angels, Astaroth the Grim, during the 41st millennium, with his investigation of sensing cursed brethren, the true heritage of the chapter would be revealed by the Redeemer of the Lost. Finally understanding the nature of their strange blood curse, as symptoms of the Red Thirst and Black Rage, the chapter began to induct sanguinary priests into their ranks to tend to their genetic flaws. Renaming themselves as the Carmine Blades henceforth, the chapter has grudgingly accepted the traditions of the Blood Angels into their doctrine. Struggling to contend with their new understanding, the Astartes of the chapter ritually scar and flay captured adversaries as an act of venting their frustrations. A resourceful, resilient, and somewhat barbaric chapter, the Carmine Blades, despite only accepting their revelation late in their service, aided their primogenitor, the Blood Angels, during the devastation of Baal. Sending 8 companies of their chapter to defend the Baal system, the Carmine Blades oversaw the protection of the astropathic choir on the moon of Baal Secundus and suffered heavy losses. Their chapter master Khan, slain by the Great Devourer, and over 600 of their men killed in action, the arrival of the Avenging Sun would prove to be instrumental in the survival of the chapter. Reinforced with Primaris Space Marines, the chapter now overwhelmingly fields such warriors as they take to the field of the campaign of the Golden Host. Alongside the Blood Angels, the Carmine Blades attempt to reclaim the Dormet system from the Black Legion and test the strength of their newly integrated reinforcements. Launching a shadow war upon the world of Hedoth, followed by a cooperative strike alongside the Talon 44th Armored Regiment upon the world of Zongal, their victories would be undercut by the Black Legion's counterattack of the feudal world of Tydor. Their armor painted with carnelian red and bone-white trim, the chapter assigned their company markings on their right pauldron, with their right knee plate identifying their squad marking. The symbol of their chapter, 3 blood drops atop a white skull resembling a chalice, their relatively new icon of their order, represents the first blood chalices to be presented to the Blood Angels during its founding by their Primarch, Sanguinius. Such relics mostly lost to the ravages of war, and its surviving number given only to the most faithful warriors of the blood. The symbol of the chapter honors their pledge to serve in the name of the Great Angel. For though the chapter still struggles to contain their gene flaws, their devotion to fight as true sons of the blood is undeniable. The Charnel Guard are a successor chapter of the Blood Angels. Their first chapter master, Dominion Zephon of the 9th Legion, of a brooding and cold demeanor, his exemplary service, made during the Siege of Terra, would in time be rewarded with his leadership of his own morose band of warriors. Suspected to have been raised as part of the Third Founding, peculiarly, they are the only chapter sired from Sanguinius not recognized as part of the Sanguinary Brotherhood by their primogenitor. Said to be created with a mixture of both the bloodline of Sanguinius and an unknown strain of another chapter, this mutated chimeric breed of warriors bear elongated teeth, white pupilless eyes, and grey skin said to smell of rotting flesh. Reclusive and secretive in nature, this fleet-based chapter roams the galaxy laying dormant within stasis crypts until unleashing their forces upon their foes. Possessing several ancient armaments, such as Dreadnought variants, Fellblade super heavy tanks, and several Fire Raptor variants of Storm Eagle gunships, their sizable armored contingents are the envy of their peers. Their storied service spanning from the War of the False Primarch of 860.M33, Great Malagatine Purge of 770.M38, and Angevin Crusade of 322.M39, eclipsing the plaudits and glories of their bloodline, the ill regard by the Sanguinary Brotherhood nevertheless remains. A member of the Maelstrom Warders since its inception during 587.M41, alongside the Lamenters, Mantis Warriors, and Astral Claws. With the Tyrant of Badab, Luft-Huron's crusade to cleanse the Maelstrom, the Charnel Guard withdrew their alliance during 651.M41. Reappointed to the Thanatos Crusade by the High Lords of Terra, the Charnel Guard's wisdom spared them from the wrath which would later be endured by their naive and misguided peers. A member of the successors of the Blood, known as the Triarchy, alongside the Blood Eagles and its 2 successor chapters, the Angels Numinous and Red Seraphs. This band of Astartes dedicated their service to purging the Emperor's enemies within Imperium Nihilus. Resolving to eviscerate their enemies, root and stem, even should it cause the extinction of their chapters, should the Triarchy manage to locate the Indomitus Crusade of the Avenging Sun, Rebute Guilliman, they would pledge fealty to serve the Ultramarines Primarch in battle. dispatching their first company veterans to the Blood Angels chapter during the devastation of Baal. Despite their mistreatment and alienation by their primogenitor, the Charnel Guard fought valiantly to defend the Baal system. Conducting rituals by their mortuary cult, the chapter preserves the bones of their fallen battle brothers and enshrines them within the vast crypts of their battle barges. Decorating their armor with the bones of their fallen heroes, their glory shall live on as their mere presence inspires their kin to fight in their name. Their ceramite a mixture of black and maroon, their armor is polished to mimic the sheen of volcanic glass. The symbol of their order, a stylized black fleur-de-lis cross centered by a fanged skull, is among the most ornate and recognizable designs of the Astartes chapters. Their methods of war permitting the loss of civilian lives should it enable victory. The lack of restraint exhibited by the chapter is further embellished by their active practice of torturing their captured enemies to further break the resolve of their opposition. For woe betide both the wicked or the innocent, should they stand in the path of the Charnel Guard's onslaughts, for the chapter's reputation, whilst efficient, is nothing if not bloody. The Cruor Blades are a successor chapter of the Blood Angels. Of unknown founding nor origin, the most notable facet of the chapter's reputation is that of a stain of guilt for their inaction to aid their kin during the devastation of Baal. Utterly loyal to their primogenitor, a twist of fate would prevent the Cruor Blades from reaching Baal in time to combat the tyrannid menace of High Fleet Leviathan, despite their best efforts to join the fray. Embarking on a self-imposed penitent crusade for their failure, the chapter ventured to the Red Scar in order to purge the Great Devourer from Imperium Nihilus. Currently deployed to the Angel's Halo to reinforce the Battle of Acrabella, their efforts to preserve the Shrine World alongside the Blood Scythes, Flesh Eaters, and Blood Angels enables them to pursue redemption in the eyes of their brethren. Charging into battle wielding swords as befits their title, each blade of their arsenal is personally crafted by its bearer, using ancient techniques of forging. Some made from purest gold, mined from the chapter's homeworld of Cremonus, the Astartes raise and lower their blades in salute to those they deem of the utmost admiration. Clad in silver power armor with dark red arm plating, shoulder pauldrons, and helmets, the crimson of their ceramite represents their honor paid to their primogenitor chapter. Bearing a black Imperialis or Aquila on their chest, and likewise appointing their squad speciality on their right pauldron of the same color, red Logothic numerals are centered upon their design to indicate their squad number. Revering the symbol of their chapter on their left pauldron, a red droplet of blood crossed with two black swords, their knightly customs and martial traditions are of paramount import to the chapter. For as their penitent crusade continues, they shall espouse the glories of the Lord Commander as the newly appointed regent of Imperium Nihilus, and slay any wretched heretics or Xenos within his domain.
They will vilify us for our methods, yet nobody questions the results. We are the chosen scions of Sanguinius, tempered weapons of the Emperor himself. Our enemies quake with fear, even before we strike first blood. They will soon know it is a fear well-founded. Let them fear the angels of death. Let them fear what is left of their short future. Let them pray for death. Brothers, we will answer those prayers.
The Flesh Eaters are a successor chapter of the Blood Angels. Created during an unknown founding, despite their ominous title and rumors abounding of their gorging on bodies, no evidence exists of the Flesh Eaters' incidents of cannibalism. Their first recorded campaigns documented during the 33rd millennium, their efforts in quelling the War of the False Primarch gained them much glory. Fighting alongside the so-called Pentarchy of Blood, comprised of the Carcharodons, Charnel Guard, Death Eagles and Red Talons, the Flesh Eaters helped lay waste to 11 Astartes chapters, deemed Traitoris Perdita, and purge their homeworlds of life. The campaign lasting 8 solar decades before its conclusion, rumors since have spread that after millennia of service, the chapter has been, quote, fatally undone by their gene seed. Records show that the Flesh Eaters incurred massive casualties during the Golance War, losing 350 Astartes during their fight against the Eldari. Yet with the intervention of 5 warriors of the Mentors chapter, the war would be won in the name of the Imperium. Lending their remaining might to the Blood Angels during the devastation of Baal, the combined fury of several chapters of the Blood, and Rabute Guilliman's Indomitus crusade, the High Fleet Leviathan was repelled from Baal, and its soil spared from annihilation. Their chief librarian, Scaraban, crucial in sharing his experience facing the Tyranid menace, the intervention of the Flesh Eaters proved extremely beneficial to the defense of the system. Replenished with hundreds of Primaris Space Marine reinforcements, the chapter continues to fight in the name of the Emperor and uphold the valor of their gene heritage. Waging war alongside the Blood Scythes, Cruor Blades and Blood Angels in defending the Shrine World of Akrabella, the Flesh Eaters continue to uphold their reputation as stalwart guardians of humanity. Their bonds of fealty so strong with their brother chapters of the Blood, to incur the wrath of their kin is to invite reprisal of their own chapter as an act of solidarity. Their armor painted bright red, trimmed with white, a single vertical stripe helps to differentiate their forces from their similarly identified chapter, the Carmine Blades. Their legendary Jaws of Doom assault squad decorate their helmets with monstrous open jaw designs and adopt a white skull within a black circle in the stead of their chapter icon. The majority of its warriors bearing the stylized white maw in white, replete with jagged and bloodied teeth. It is no wonder why the laymen of the Imperium are instilled with terror whilst gazing upon the shark-like jaws on their armor. Craving the blood of their enemies, with their forces now overwhelmingly of Primaris Space Marine stock, only time will tell if the genius of Belisarius Cawl has nullified the chapter's hunger for flesh. The Knights of Blood are a successor chapter of the Blood Angels. Created during an unknown founding, their ranks continually succumb to the call of the genetic curses of the Red First and Black Rage, and in their desperation to end their suffering, enabled themselves to gorge on the blood of the innocent. Their consumption physically mutating their bodies, their skin became red, their eyes yellowed and their teeth sharpened and elongated in their jaws. Fighting alone to conceal their change, the Knights of Blood committed untold breaches in protocol and oversteps in authority. Enacting an imperial crusade to purge the Emperor's foes from within his domain, their centuries of wrathful campaigns with time earned them censure. With the dawn of the 41st millennium, the High Lords of Terror declared the Knights of Blood as renegades to the Imperium, causing the chapter to disappear into the void for many years, yet continue their crusade to purge the rot within the Imperium. Their genetic purity ravaged by their inherited gene flaws and lack of support from the Imperium, their combat doctrine further escalated their loss of numbers. Once considered the epitome of the Astartes' might when dedicated to an assault force, the Knights of Blood's butchery and melee-wrought carnage are the stuff of legends. Wielding chainswords and power fists to deadly effect, should a Knight of Blood be disarmed, his bare hands and teeth shall suffice in ripping his foes apart. Lacking in heavy weapons or armored vehicles, each warrior of the chapter carries bolt pistols and melee weapons into battle to better sate their hunger for slaughter. Their submission to the Red First and Black Rage causing several instances of friendly fire against their allies in battle. Such instances further hastened their censure by the Imperium. Aiding Imperial forces on several occasions despite their condemnation, the chapter appeared unannounced during several conflicts in aiding guard regiments and beleaguered planetary defense forces. Their reputation, that of carnage and collateral damage, most Imperial commanders refused the aid offered by the chapter, unless under the direst of circumstances. Protecting their charges from inquisitorial scrutiny by keeping a safe distance during all engagements, the Knights of Blood vindicated their actions, for only the Emperor himself could judge them. Operating within the Achilles Crusade of 777.M41, their battle against the Tau's Farsight Enclave during 999.M41 proved to be the nail in the proverbial coffin. Upon the world of Lub Graal, the Knights of Blood saw to the extermination of the Tau Earthcast upon its surface and tallied nearly 1,000 souls with their initial assault. Confronted by Riptide and Broadside battlesuit teams, the Knights of Blood were brought low through costly ambushes orchestrated by Commander Farsight. Knowing their losses to be of a scale never to be replenished in conjunction with their renegade status, the Knights of Blood resolved to make a final act of repentance. Intercepting the call for aid by Lord Commander Dante of the Blood Angels to defend their homeworld, the Knights of Blood joined their brethren. Initially seen as interlopers, worthy only of the Emperor's judgment, with time the Knights of Blood proved their worth to their primogenitor by confronting the demonic and tyrannid hordes hell-bent on destroying the great Angel's homeworld. Keeping their distance from their peers, their efforts would, regardless of their reputation, prove invaluable in fending off the forces of the Bloodthirster of Khorne, Ka'Bandha. Fighting alongside the Flesh Tearers, Gabriel Seth's men would witness the valor of the Knights of Blood as their last act of defiance on the moon of Baal Prime ended their service to the Emperor. Their last chapter master, Centaur Jewel, facing Ka'Bandha in single combat, the first blade of the Knights of Blood led his men, now entirely enraptured by the Black Rage, into their final act of glorious annihilation. Refusing to allow his men to be turned to serve Ka'Bandha and his fell benefactor, Jewel died fighting the Bane of the Ninth as a noble son of the Angel. Ensuring the continued survival of the Flesh Tearers chapter, the impact of their sacrifice and heed to not follow in their footsteps, imparted to Chapter Master Gabriel Seth, would stay with the Guardian of Rage as a great lesson for the remainder of his leadership. Clad in dark red and silver armor, the Knights designated their company on their right pauldron and squad identifier on their right knee plate. The symbol of their chapter, a white shield adorned with a red droplet of blood and 2 crossed black swords, a reminder of their nobility among the butchery and torment of their men. With the arrival of Primaris Space Marines of the relief effort of the devastation of Baal, Lord Dante concluded that the Knights of Blood shall remain an extinct chapter. Better to allow for their deeds to be forever enshrined in their last act of heroism, for all Blood Angel successors to revere their sacrifice. The Sable Knights are a successor chapter of the Blood Angels. Created during an unknown founding, of all the descendants of Sanguinius, the Sable Knights are among the most enigmatic and mysterious chapters. Racing from warzone to warzone, in order to outrun their gene flaw of the Black Rage, the baleful fleet-based warriors clad their leg and torso armor in deep ebon black to represent their affliction. The remainder of their ceramite daubed in dark red with black shoulder trim, the Aquila or Imperialis of their chestplate of fine silver starkly represents their duty to the Emperor. The symbol of their order, 3 large white droplets of blood on a field of dark red, promises only the shedding of blood, with no fanfare nor glory earned. Outrunning the Black Rage with hopes of perishing in glory before its corruption of their chapter entire, their use of armored spearhead assaults and fleets of transport vehicles ferries their soldiers into the clutches of war to enable a swift yet worthwhile death. Dutiful yet dour in their resolve to die as useful warriors of the Astartes, their intervention during the War of the Beast and campaign of the Nakmund Rift War epitomizes their thankless toil. Heeding the call to return to Baal to defend the holy soil of Sanguinius' people, the Sable Knights tried in vain to reach their kin, yet have been cut off from the Baal system due to the birth of the Great Rift. Led by their knight captain, Vorgas, the chapter heeded the call to arms and attempted to venture through the Nakmund Gauntlet. Their arrival to the Baal system, unrecorded by Imperial records, it is likely that the chapter still fights the forces of chaos in their attempts to breach safe passage through the Cicatrix Maledictum. Their pledge to aid the Wardens of the Gauntlet, comprised of dozens of lost Space Marine chapter contingents, sustained only until their passage through the Nakmund Gauntlet can be achieved. This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by The Remembrancer. The sons of the Great Angel have spilled their blood in the defense of the innocent for generations. The most noble of all the chapters of the Space Marines, despite their valor and glorious deeds, the dark undercurrent of their bloodlust and rage are a ceaseless test of their will. Sanguinius, though slain, watches over them to this day, and in his image they shall stand against the terrors of the void, resolute in their duty. Never shall they surrender, and no matter the devastation they incur, their blood shall not be spilt in vain.